Perhaps the true beauty of fishing is that it gives us cause to travel to wild and remote places. In Australia, the only real way to get to these places is by four-wheel drive. Access is often down rough roads and narrow bush tracks. Generally, the rougher the track, the better the fishing. These kinds of places will punish even the toughest gear, and something breaking out here will leave you in all sorts of strife. So it's important to be prepared for when things go wrong. On this episode of Scenic Route TV, I'll take you through a basic store of spare parts I carry for the boat and trailer, and on building an off-road tinny trailer in the backyard, capable of handling some of Australia's toughest conditions.
G'day folks, welcome to Scenic Route TV. Today, just going through all the spare parts and tools that I keep in the tinny. These are just things that I've found useful in the past. So I just keep it all in just a little waterproof bag here. Just lives up the front of the boat there. What do we got? Bit of CRC, always handy in a marine environment. You can get a lot undone with this stuff. Compressed air. I've used this a bit, just the plugs on the sounder have fouled up with gunk a bit. And it's obviously nice to have a sounder. So a quick blast of some CRC and some compressed air. It's got it going again a couple of times. So tools, hammer, screwdriver one, Phillips head, flathead, just basic stuff. Bit of stainless steel fencing wire. You can fix a lot with this stuff. I actually snapped the tilt pin on the motor and managed to fix it just with a bolt and a bit of fencing wire. So yeah, pretty handy this stuff. Carburetor and throttle body cleaner. Just spray it down the jets with a bit of compressed air. Often when the motor's running a bit rough or not running very well, that's the cause. Electrical crimping pliers for 12 volt electrics. Standard set of pliers, you know, for undoing stubborn shackles and that sort of thing. A bit of rope, always handy on a boat. Spare prop. This is an important one. If you run over a bit of rock or sand or something, on my prop it's got this little rubber bush inside, a little sacrificial bush, and if that goes, when you go to drive, you're not going to move anywhere. The prop's not going to spin and propel the boat forward. If you are paying somebody to service it, with a machine like this, I mean, it probably costs you $300 or $400 to get it serviced. To do it yourself, it probably costs you about 30 or 40 bucks in parts and maybe an hour of your time. There's some great videos on YouTube showing you how you can do it. Not just for the fact of saving money, but also knowing your motor as well. I mean, knowledge is priceless. And of course, a shifter, which probably needs a bit of CRC. Oh, my shifter isn't shifting. Yeah, we'll leave that one for another day. Spare primer bulb. So these are all spare parts here. Spare kill switch lanyard. You know, that mine there often does go missing, so it's good to have another one on board to get you out of trouble. Spare flywheel rope. Couple of old spark plugs. A little bit of marine weld, just for patching up cracks and spare bung or two. Spare impeller. If it does break, the motor will start overheating and cause you all sorts of strife. So yeah, handy to have one of these. And it's also there if I ever need to change it. You know, I don't have to stuff around and wait for parts. And hose clamps, split pins. Yeah. So it's the old Murphy's Law with a lot of this stuff. I mean, we carry all these things and probably never use them, but the time we set off without them, it's probably the time where it'll all sort of come falling apart. And of course, the trusty old Leatherman. Always carry 5 litres of spare fuel for obvious reasons. Spare anchor up the front. Yeah, pretty handy always having a couple of anchors and a spare bit of chain and a couple of shackles as well. These are very handy as well, just a couple of fenders. So if we have dragged the boat up the beach a fair way, a couple of these just under the keel will make it much easier to push it back into the water. And then of course there's your trailer spare parts as well. So first, just a little bit about the trailer. I did originally have a boat on the roof. I was planning on taking that around Australia. After one little trial trip, just found it was too hard. Changed plans, bought a bigger boat, 4.1 metres I think it is. I reckon it's a great size for travelling around, a nice all-rounder. You can get it a fair way offshore still, get it up plenty of creeks, and it's not too big and not too heavy. A couple of days ago we had it sort of 40 kilometres offshore, 20 nautical miles out in the Great Barrier Reef out there. So it's fairly capable offshore, it's plenty wide and plenty deep. Yeah, so I bought that and thought I'd just build a new trailer for it that was basically indestructible.
I spent 2 months slowly tinkering with this off-road tinny trailer in the backyard with my mate Levi. When I began designing it, the trailer had to meet a simple set of criteria. It had to be simple and easy to fix on the road, and it also had to be capable of going anywhere my vehicle could. It's since been across the Simpson Desert, WA's old telegraph line, and the overland teletrack at Cape York, mostly without issue. When we started doing this though, I'd had no fabrication experience. Levi could weld, and he brought most of the technical skills to this project. All I had was an idea, plenty of time, a spot to build this, and the willingness to learn and nut things out. Along the way, there was plenty of trial and error. All up, it probably cost me about $2,000 and well over 100 hours of time to build the trailer. Having never done anything like this before, I felt a real sense of accomplishment when I finally got it registered and on the road.
Woo!
That sensation is the real reward and something that no amount of money can buy.
Now the chassis pretty much is indestructible. It's all 3 and 4 mil steel. It's got a really long drawbar. I made it just the way I wanted it so that I could still have plenty of room by the back doors of the troopy there and open everything up and have lots of space and not have to unhook the boat. I've probably over-engineered it a bit, but that's better than under-engineering it and having things breaking. But the biggest problems we've had have been with all the running gear. The first thing I would suggest for spare parts is spare leaf springs. You must have spare leaf springs. We've been through about 3 sets now. I've gone the eye-to-eye ones, which sort of gives a little bit more flex. They're, I think, 6 leaf, rated to about 750 kilos on each side, which is heaps, but they're just the short, sort of 45 mil wide springs. So when I can, I'm probably going to stop and upgrade them to longer car springs, maybe from an old Hilux or something. Go on skids over rollers. Skids are preferable to rollers because, I mean, it's just one solid piece against the hull of your boat. It's not lots of different little wheels pushing up into it, so it is less likely to put a hole in your boat. It's all open channel, all box section, 3 and 4 mil steel, so it won't rust. There's no spot that any water can get trapped inside. What else we got? Plenty of tie down points, nice little recessed bits of C-section over the lights, just so that they're protected. Rocks can't flick up and destroy those lights. We've got the off-road wheels, just gives it a bit more clearance for forward driving and taking it places. It does sometimes make it a little bit tricky to get the boat in the water, If I was to do it again, and possibly down the track I will, I'll put just a split, just a break in the trailer for beach launching, so the trailer can split and the bottom half will lower down and the boat will slide off a lot easier. So spare parts, over here we've got a spare rolling hub, which also acts basically as a drop down third wheel, so it's really handy for beach launching. So you've got the spare bearing and hub in there, spare tyre, very handy. 2 spare seals here, damaged the seals getting them out, I've got a couple here ready to go. And of course, if you're carrying spare leaf springs, you want some other assorted components as well. Here we've got spare bushes for the spring eyes and shackle eyes. A couple of spare shackle pins in case you strip the thread taking it off. Spare U-bolts. We've been through a few of these U-bolts. Snapped a couple trying to take them off. Putting them back on, I've snapped some, I've stripped the thread on them, trying to put them back up, and just after you spent 2 or 3 hours rolling around in the dirt changing a leaf spring, the last thing you want is to destroy your only remaining U-bolts and not be able to get the spring back on. So spare U-bolts are a good idea. And that's about it. Don't need a whole lot of spare parts for the trailer, it's mostly just the running gear. I sort of ummed and ahed for ages about whether I should tow a trailer or put a boat on the roof, and it's definitely a better option towing a trailer, I think. If you build it strong, it'll go anywhere, and it also means that we can just throw all our stuff in the boat, throw the swag in there, throw all our dive gear in there, throw all our fishing gear in there, and then the boat's just ready to go. If we want to go for a quick fish, we can. It's not a whole day's job unloading it and setting it up. All it's really about is just having a good understanding of the different components of the trailer and how to fix them.